Hey guys, my name's Mary Lily.
I'm Marshall.
And I'm Caitlin.
And we're the hosts of
Unveiled Opinions.
Three newlywed girlies with a podcast on any and everything wedding related.
Happy Monday.
Happy Monday.
How's it going?
It's good. I mean, I know you just said it was Monday, but like I am in that time between Christmas and New Year's where I don't know what day it is or what's happening. So
I completely get that. I was talking to my brother earlier today and I was like, wait, what day is it? Is it Tuesday?
I know. My mom asked me the same thing. She's like, what day is Friday? I was like, girl, I don't know.
Yeah,
get a calendar.
Who knows what's going on?
Couldn't tell you.
But it's about to be a new year.
Yeah. I see everyone's stuff on Instagram, like all their highlights for 2024. I'm like, ugh, it was a lot. I don't know. It was one of those years where like some years you have like stuff that nothing happens.
Yeah.
And this year I was like, I'm ready for a year where nothing happens.
Yeah, definitely. It's just been chaos. But if you are just engaged or planning a wedding, this is going to be your year.
Yeah.
That are like about to be 2025.
Yes.
It's my wedding year.
Or I'll be like, I see stuff. It's like, you're going to be 2025 engaged, 2026 bride. And I'm like,
yeah,
that's exciting. Lots of new trends and stuff coming up.
Yeah. I love seeing the ones where it like comes up with the math of like, okay, this is why this is the best wedding year. I remember.
Yes. I remember that too. They did it for like when I got married in 2022. Like they were, I don't know. It was entertaining.
Yeah.
There's always something.
Regardless, it's going to be the best year ever.
Yes.
Hopefully. Well, it is now, by the time y'all are hearing this, officially 2025. And today we're going to talk about some, things as we go into the new year of if you are engaged or, scheming to be engaged or working on planning a wedding. Because I found this out, 40% of people get engaged between Thanksgiving and Valentine's Day.
Wow. I mean, that's a lot. I guess it makes sense though to get engaged into the year, beginning of the new year, if you want to get married in that 8 months or whatever timeline, 8 to 10 months. You can still do it all in that year.
You men think that way?
Men don't, but I feel like if the girl's smart, she can like start working on
those seeds.
Yeah.
Like, here's when you should propose by.
Yes.
Yeah.
Be like, doesn't that make the most sense? No, men don't think that way at all. If they do, you got a good one.
You got a good one. But yeah, no, that's a good point. It gives you kind of that 8 to 9 month sweet spot of planning. And then 19% of people get engaged in December, which I guess if you are like around family a lot more, then
that
like
makes
it's
sense
nice
too.
to be able to celebrate and whatnot.
Yeah. Yeah. I wonder how many people do it like on Christmas or like the Christmas Eve, Christmas Day.
I saw 3.
Oh, yeah.
Just in like a little
snippet. Yeah. I know of one couple that's supposed to be getting engaged. He asked the dad, like her dad, over Christmas, like permission. So I guess I'm assuming it's coming up probably like New Year's. So I guess that is a good time because you are around family. If you want to do like, the special talk with them and stuff, it gives you a good opportunity.
A good point too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Lots of celebrations. On the radio today, Sirius XM radio.
The radio.
One of the channel's hosts was saying that they are predicting Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce get engaged on New Year's Eve.
I've seen that too. And I feel like they wouldn't.
Yeah, it was like
New Year's Eve. I just feel like that they are like, I feel like they're already engaged or something. You know what I'm saying? Like they would just do something. Either. Yeah.
And then he was like, if they don't get engaged New Year's Eve, then I think they'll get engaged at the Super Bowl. And I'm like, literally, the Super Bowl
sounds awful.
Like, I would.
Yeah, that sounds terrible.
Yeah. What?
I don't think so. Maybe they will, but I like don't think so. She couldn't have waited this long and fallen in love with so many frogs to like get engaged at the Super Bowl.
It would be trash.
That's like Oh gosh, no.
They
No.
don't seem like crazy public people either. So it's like, why
No.
would you do it as a
There.
commercial, basically?
Yeah, it would literally be like one big ad or something.
Yeah, yeah, it would be.
That's like I feel like that's too like influencer for them.
Yeah.
Like that's like something an influencer would do.
But maybe somebody here is getting engaged at the Super Bowl.
Yeah, but I feel like those are like normal people, like
Yeah.
it's not like you would have like paparazzi.
Yeah, you won't have everybody.
Yeah,
I mean, it literally would be like an ad.
it would. It'd be like a Super Bowl like commercial or something.
Yeah.
You know what I'm
Can you
saying? Like,
imagine though, like I mean, I guess that would be maybe cool. Your engagement being like among the headlines of like the best Super Bowl
yeah,
and the worst Super Bowl commercials. And it's like, where does your engagement fall in the stack?
yeah, I know. Like, I also didn't even know his team was like like in the Super. Like, when is the Super Bowl?
Not
I
for,
don't watch it. I don't watch it.
yeah. My mom just told me like when I was
Yeah.
for the holidays.
Yeah, that's not something that's usually on my radar.
No, I'll like show up to a party, bring a
Same,
snack,
because
eat
the
lunch.
food's always good. Like
Not
the appetizers are good. I don't
Yeah.
watch it.
No.
And I don't care about the commercials either.
No, I feel like the commercials have gotten worse.
I know. I feel like they've gotten bad.
But
Interesting if she does.
yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. Back at it.
Yeah. So if you have gotten engaged over the holiday season or even before, I had, a couple friends that got engaged kind of closer to that October time frame.
Mhm.
Wanted to enjoy, a little bit of
Yeah.
being engaged. It can definitely be that kind of emotional whirlwind of like
Yeah.
excitement and joy and nerves.
Mhm.
And so today we're going to break down some things to help you feel just like a little bit more kind of control
Yeah.
or at ease in the early stages of getting engaged. Marsh, was there anything that you like wanted to prioritize right after you got engaged?
I wanted to prioritize being engaged. That little bit of a break before you dive in, because Gil and I had discussed some things before we got engaged, like things that we like would probably want, but nothing indefinites. So we hadn't really had any serious conversations about the wedding. Ideally, we wanted to take a month of being engaged and then dive into it. We didn't really get it. I feel like everybody else gets really excited and starts asking you questions. But if you could like set that boundary at first, it would help you in the long run. Yeah. Especially with family. I feel like family means well, but like 2 days after we got engaged, we had people telling us we had to invite children. And that was the one thing we did talk about. We were like, child-free wedding. That was one thing we had already discussed. So people's opinions at the beginning can be overwhelming. So if you can like set your boundaries in a nice way, or firm way, I wish I had done that a little better for sure.
Yeah. Well, prioritizing the time, which is that it's like everybody kind of says that is like take the time and like enjoy being engaged. And it can be easier said than done. But I think like the other piece is like setting the boundaries. And then as you said, you and Gil didn't totally talk about like what you wanted in a wedding. And so it can be nice and it's probably even more important if you haven't talked about it, to like have those firm lines with other people, because it is, I mean, I even like 6 months into wedding planning, that just the opinions, it's still a lot once you have stuff more narrowed down.
Yeah, for sure. So it's like, if you don't have a clear vision of what you want, you can get easily swayed by other people's opinions at first.
Yeah.
So just try and like celebrate like being engaged, go on date nights, and then because planning a wedding, even with a planner, is like a full-time job. And then you have your full-time job. So it's like you need that little bit of a break before you dive in, just so you can collect your thoughts and everything. Yeah. So try and get that if you can.
Try and create that. Well, and I think that's a good point too. And I would say that's kind of one of our points that we'll hit on today is like, regardless of if you started mentally planning before you were engaged or not, once you actually have a ring, you are having a lot better idea of what's possible and when. And so taking the time to kind of date each other, enjoy it, and starting to like look for inspiration is so, so important.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And it's also another thing too, it like when you go to meet with vendors, you need to have a kind of clear vision of, it doesn't have to be like totally concrete of like, here's exactly what I want, but just kind of that high level of like what you do want so that it can meet you in the middle.
You need to have some sort of idea, like at least like on location, season, you know, high level things, because no one can really choose that for you.
No.
Like your planner's not gonna, or like vendors are not gonna want to like choose what season they can help you decide, but these are some things that you have to decide with your fiance.
Exactly. Like the season, that's a good one. And then like flowers too. Even I feel like they kind of want to know like some things that you like or like that you like. And they'll be like, oh, here's what we would recommend based on what's on season and whatnot. But it's, as you said, like vendors don't want to just like throw something out there and be like,
there's so many options. I feel like they want you to have a little bit of an idea, and also with your budget. Like that's I feel like every vendor is going to ask you that up front. Like that's like the first question they ask. So there are some very like high level things you have to know, but I feel like after that they can help you from there, but they can't. They literally can't plan your whole wedding for you.
No, they're not going to find the inspiration for you.
Yes.
How did you and Gil start talking about it and like looking for inspiration?
So we had kind of, I guess, found inspiration or talked about things before we got engaged just from going to other people's weddings. We saw things that we liked at their weddings but knew wouldn't work for us, or, you know, other things we're like, oh my gosh, we definitely want to do that at our wedding. So I feel like just going, we had, I think 8 weddings one year, like the year before we got engaged. So we had a bajillion weddings that we went to.
You did some market research.
Yeah, lots of good inspiration there. And then, you know, online, of course, it's always, I feel like TikTok and Instagram and Pinterest is kind of once you hit a certain age, wedding stuff is in your face, I feel like a lot, especially if you're going to other people's weddings. So, you know, I always had like a Pinterest board that I literally got rid of. I feel like I started a new one the moment I got engaged, because some of that stuff was on there. It was so old. I was like, what was I ever thinking? And it was probably from when I was in college, you know, it was so long ago. So I think I started a new Pinterest board and started looking. I had like a broad level, you know, like broad idea of where I wanted the wedding. So I started looking at planners in those areas and then looking at their pictures like on Instagram and stuff. So I had a couple of ideas and just kind of like went through those channels. But yeah, I really think real life weddings is great inspo. Like just think about the weddings you've been to, what you liked, what you didn't like, what you would tweak, stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel like too, like with like the real weddings, you typically remember kind of the highs and lows.
Yes,
and so it may like, you don't have to be like, oh my God, every single detail, but like what were the most memorable things about it and that you liked and that you didn't like. And I love you. I know I've heard you say this before where you like went through people's Instagrams and like the planners and looked at photos and used that as a way to get inspiration. That is some sleuthing.
Yeah, and that's a good way to find vendors too. And like which vendors like have more of like the vibe, because they're like, you know, you get married in a city, you have 1,000 vendors you can choose from, you know? So it's like, and some, you know, are more like flowers, you know, they're like more into more muted, like the whites and like, you know, the greens and stuff. And if that's not your style, don't book that planner, you know, because that's like kind of same with photographers. I see this a lot. I feel like people find a photographer and they almost want them to change their style. It's like, don't book like a moody, like dark, like kind of glam photographer. If you want bright and airy, you're not going to be happy. So I just feel like, you know, look at their work, look at their, like, you don't even have to like, I hear like, you know, look at their portfolio and you can like contact them. But if you want to like look at their Instagram before or their tagged photos, or even like photographers on Pinterest. I feel like they'll put so many of their pictures on Pinterest. That's how I found my photographer. And like he did like a wedding in like Edisto that I just like fell in love with. And that's why I contacted him. But yeah, you got to do a little bit of research before. Do
and
some like stalking.
Do some research. And that's a good way to find inspiration too.
Yeah.
Is, you know, even early on when you get engaged, if you're not like totally like vetting vendors just yet, save the stuff that you're finding of the styles that you like. Because then when you are like, okay, really looking at vendors and whatnot, you can be like, is this in alignment? Because I know my planner had told me a story about one girl who it was like a month before her wedding, maybe a little bit longer than a month, probably like 6 weeks. And she fired her hair and makeup because they were like, it was the trial and the bride like requested something. She wanted like very heavy eye makeup and whatnot. That was like darker. And they were like, that's not us at all.
Yeah. Some don't do that. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why a month before I would die.
Yeah. It was.
That's intense.
Look at inspiration.
Yes. Look at inspiration. And also like the one thing though, you can't, I feel like, get a feel for guest experience from pictures and stuff like that. So that would be a good thing to like pay attention to when you go to other people's weddings and stuff.
Definitely.
So because for some people, that's really, like for us, it was really important, the guest experience. So
absolutely. Well, and I know, like you said, okay, and I was the same way. My like original Pinterest board of the wedding, like it was from when I was in college. Like I like was literally like, we need to start over because this is
like, and it was like also it was like with different boyfriends of the past, and like it would be stuff that Gil wouldn't even like wasn't even interested in, you know? So that was just don't try and add on from your Pinterest board from 10 years
You can maybe take some pins from it and still apply. But to that, because obviously there's some things that like we just are not that person anymore.
Yes.
And thankfully don't have the same taste. And then I think there's some things where it's like, okay, to your point, like, my fiance, that's just not him. So was there anything that like once you were engaged versus like your, Pinterest board that you had to kind of like compromise or like be like, okay, this really isn't a part of the inspiration moving forward?
Yeah, I feel like there was like small details that I wouldn't say they were really important to me. I just like thought I really wanted them, like a champagne tower and like stuff like that. And then it's almost like you get to the logistics of it and it's like, that's going to be a sticky mess. Do I really want to pay for all of that champagne when I could just get past champagne flute so everyone could do a toast? You know what I'm saying? So there were certain things like that like before I knew how much stuff cost, before I knew anything about logistics, that I really thought I needed to have this. Like I wanted that whole that whole vibe for my wedding. But then another thing I did, I made a vision board to like make sure that all the elements that I thought I wanted actually looked good together. And sometimes they don't. Like they really don't. Like it's two completely different vibes, and sometimes they don't mesh. Like it's like, and you have to, if I had like a country club wedding, and some of the things I thought I wanted didn't even go with that like whole like aesthetic. So I kind of had to just like mix some things around to make it make sense.
Yeah. So. Well, and I think like for the advice that I would have is when you are getting like recently engaged and you're going through that, it's kind of like having like a nice to have and a must have.
Yes.
And you may not totally know where certain things fall. Like I know for me, there were a couple things that were fluid that would like move within depending on, what our budget was, the venue, all of those things. But at least like having kind of some of that criteria on your inspiration will help you make some of those decisions of like, yeah, maybe I don't want the champagne tower because it's going to be a mess. And like
Right.
people could just drink the champagne. We don't need to.
Yeah. Like, is that picture really that important?
Yeah.
Like, you know, like it's really cute. I love it, but not something that was like make or break. And it was
For
just
you.
like at one point I was like, my mom was like, well, maybe we could do like fireworks like at the end of the night. My venue didn't allow fireworks. You know what I'm saying? Just like
Yeah,
things
it's
like that. And
all
like
the things.
it's just like you want everything at first, and sometimes it doesn't make sense to have everything.
Yeah.
So just know that going in.
There's no like perfect.
No.
Like there's
Yeah.
it's just like marriage.
Yeah, there's compromise and
Compromise.
just don't get your heart. I would say like don't have your heart set on really any one thing. Because you might like I feel like almost like my style changed throughout being engaged. Because I was like, why did I ever want some of that? Like by the end of it, I was like, I don't want that. Like I don't like that's absolutely god awful. And that because I think you get an overload. You're looking at all this inspiration, and it's almost like you like forget what you wanted to begin with, and you're like, let me add that, let me add all those things, and it's like you don't need.
Let's do it.
You don't need everything.
Well, and that was one of the things, like, as I was like doing some research, that was like, sit down, like, make the list of your likes and dislikes and whatnot. And then also, like, look through, you know, inspiration, but kind of time block it. Like, only don't look more than like 30 minutes because you are going to overwhelm yourself.
Yes.
And then it's like,
scroll.
Yeah, like kind of like put those like parameters on it. And then when you go back and like look through it for a final time, you can say, okay, this is actually like, because you do just get excited and you're like,
add it all. Yeah. Let's have like a multi-million-dollar wedding.
Yeah, why not? It would be
that
great.
last 3 days. Yeah, let's do it.
In hindsight, so you kind of touched on a few things, but was there anything that you wish you had done as it related to kind of researching or thinking through your wedding style or inspiration?
I feel like I wish I had booked my planner a little earlier, just because I feel like she could have helped me not get so overwhelmed by all the inspiration, and she could have helped just narrow down, been like, okay, like, because she knows, I mean, she's in Pawleys Island, like she knows the area, she's very well acquainted or friends with the vendors. Like she could have, I feel like, helped save me some stress and like wasted time almost. So I feel like if you want a planner, maybe have that like be like probably the first thing you book. And she was, but I just feel like I could have, like I got so overwhelmed at first. And you know, it depends on, and my mom, like she's very helpful, but she wants me to give her direction. So she wasn't taking like the initiative to go and do anything. So like, and I was feeling so overwhelmed. I didn't even know what to tell her to do.
Yeah. You're like, I don't know what to tell myself.
Exactly. I was like, I've never gotten married before. Like, I don't know, you know? So I feel like me just like booking her earlier so she could have helped me with the inspiration and just like, you don't need to look at that. That's like,
don't worry about that yet.
Exactly. So that in my, like, I still think like, I think about that randomly, how like I should have just booked her like immediately, honestly.
Well, and I think too, like if you haven't seen the impact a planner can make, it's like, it is a big investment and you're like, is this necessary?
Is it worth it? And I do feel like a lot of people on social media and venue coordinators, they'll be like, you don't need a planner. Like, and some people don't. I'm not type A at all. Like I need a planner, but some people don't need one like at all. Like I mean, I will say it's getting more so now that I feel like a lot of other vendors and venues like almost require you to have a planner. But some people don't need one. I did. And I don't know why I ever thought I didn't. I like literally listened to people that were like, you don't need a planner. And I was like, maybe I don't. No, I did.
Yeah. And here you are.
Here I am.
You're pro planner.
Literally. Biggest fan of a planner.
Well, that kind of brings us to our second piece
Mhm.
we're going to talk on today, which is like the getting organized and like
Yeah.
kind of making that initial checklist, because whether you
Mhm.
use a planner or you don't use a planner, you
Mhm.
still have got to get your shit together.
You do.
And so that can feel really overwhelming, especially if you're like not totally ready to start planning. You just kind
Mhm.
of want to like feel less anxiety and
Mhm.
mental load. And so there's like definitely a lot early on that you don't know. Just like you
Yeah.
said, oh, I was focusing on this, and it's like, did not need to focus on that.
No, not at all.
Um, and so that's okay. Like I would just enforce like, yes, as you said it, like I've never planned a wedding before. Like
Mhm.
you don't know how to do this.
No.
That's okay. But I think it's just like when you think about getting organized is like considering what comes to mind,
Mhm.
all the things that go into that. And it's
Mhm.
just like, I think whatever your process is getting that a little bit out of your head, whether it's like writing it down, putting it
Mhm.
on a notebook,
Yeah.
whatever it is, can just help you take that first step of getting
Right.
organized. And, you know, like we kind of said, like you probably maybe were like scheming your wedding, or maybe, you know,
Right.
encouraging your fiance to
Mhm.
propose in a certain time frame so that you could get
Yeah.
engaged.
Mhm.
Maybe he took the hints, maybe he didn't. But if he didn't, then it's like, okay, you're engaged. What's actually
Right.
realistic for our time frame
Mhm.
now? And figuring that out will impact a
Mhm.
lot of those early
Yeah.
decisions. So for you again, I know you did end up hiring a planner, but before
Mhm.
you hired like pre-planner, how did you
Yeah.
start off getting organized?
I actually like got a little cute notebook
Yeah.
and I printed out like you just got engaged, what's next, like
Yeah.
checklist type thing. So I started with that and then honestly, the first thing I did, I sat down with my parents. I was like, what's the budge? What are
Yeah.
we
You're like,
doing?
hey.
And because they had expressed that they wanted to pay for it. They wanted
Yeah.
me to have like, I'm their only daughter.
Yeah.
They
You're like,
wanted
what
to do
kind
all
of
that.
party is this going to be?
Exactly. And they wanted a party. So I had Gil and I had talked about, I was like, I kind of want to do something little, and he didn't. And then my parents were like, I want a party. So I was like, I quickly was like, okay, we're not like eloping. So let's go all in. So I sat down with them, and that was like the first thing. So I was able to kind of like see like where, and I remember I Googled like how much should go to each of like
Yeah.
percentage should go to like each vendor. So that's like the first thing I did. In hindsight, I wish I had like talked more to my friends who had just gotten married, because it was still kind of fresh in
Yeah.
their mind, and been like, what's the first thing I need to do? Because you can Google all day, and depending on, there's so many different factors,
Yeah.
like how long your engagement is, like where
Mhm.
you want to get married, all these different things that like you're going to get 1,000 different answers. So
Yeah.
I wish I had talked to my friends who had weddings kind of like what I was thinking I wanted, and been like, what do I need to do? Because it
Yeah.
was still fresh in their brain. Like
Yeah.
they would have been able to tell me, and I just didn't even think about it. Like I was so like caught up in, what do I do?
Yeah. What do I do? And it
Mhm.
is like,
Mhm.
as you said, you're getting a lot of opinions typically.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
so opening up to other opinions is like kind of, I don't, it's
It's
like,
kind of scary. It's
yeah, it's like, oh, what are we going to get here?
a little overwhelming.
Yeah. But it is helpful to just hear
Mhm.
like, okay, because everybody's wedding and like their
Mhm.
planning process is different. And like
Yes.
some of our friends, they got engaged a couple months ago. They're not
Mhm.
wanting to get married till fall of 2026. So it's,
Right. Yeah.
that's different than I was like, okay, I want to get engaged and like, I
Mhm.
want to have a wedding,
Yeah.
later.
Yeah.
And so it does just impact, and, having those personal references and like,
Mhm.
advice is super helpful. And definitely if you're engaged or your friend just got engaged, get them a little
Mhm.
like wedding planning notebook.
Yes. It's lovely.
Regardless what they use
Mhm.
through the entire process, there's a zillion little thoughts that are going through.
Yes.
Just having somewhere like cute and designated to capture them,
Mhm.
it's a good gift.
It is very good.
Yeah. And then the other thing that I saw on kind of the advice side that I thought was like, wow, I wish that
Mhm.
I had done this, was creating a designated email address for all things wedding related.
That would have been
And
smart.
sharing it with
Hmm.
anybody related to the wedding process. So
Yeah.
it's like literally here are the
Mhm.
receipts. Like if it's you and your
Yes.
fiance, if your mom's involved, if
Hmm.
you have a planner, it's like who cares? Put them on the thing.
Because you're getting so many emails. I feel like that's the main way that people
So many
communicate.
emails.
It's like all you get is emails, and you have to like be on top of checking them because it's decision making.
Yeah.
You know, like, yeah, that would have been really smart to do.
Especially in the early phases when it's like, are the
Mhm.
dates still available? It's
Yeah,
like,
and you're reaching out, and it's
yeah, you
like,
kind of gotta like,
yeah,
you don't want
you
to
gotta
like
move quick.
sit for a couple days and then it's like,
Mhm.
oh, actually, somebody signed a contract.
Yes, you
Not
think you
free.
have more time than I feel like at the beginning. That's so like I feel like that's probably the most stressful is locking down the vendors. Especially, I mean, I was like, mine was like rolling off of COVID. So it was like
Oh yeah.
2022 was like that big year that like so many people are getting married and people are getting like vendors are getting snatched up. Like you have to be on top of it.
Yeah.
And it was wild.
And it's like there's not I don't want to like I don't want to be harsh and say there's like no like loyalty, but it's like they'll say something and then it's like,
Oh
oh,
yeah.
we're not free anymore. And it's like, oh shit.
That
Like,
that
did I
happened
get
to
like a
us.
grace period for
Yes. That literally happened to us for our venue because they were like, we have these dates available. And I was like, perfect. I can come down. This was like a Monday. I was like, I can come down this Friday. Like I had to drive 3 hours to
Yeah.
get there. And nothing was mentioned about me like having to like pay to like lock the like they're
Yeah,
like
put a deposit
so I
down
was
or
like,
anything.
these are some of the
Yeah.
dates
You're
I
like,
want.
great.
I get there on Friday and they're like, these dates are actually already taken. And my mom and I were like,
Sick.
like
Good
it's
to
been
know.
4 days and they're all taken. So I was like, okay, let's readjust.
Yeah. What else do you
Yeah.
got? Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Because these people really don't know you. So like they
No.
don't have a sense of loyalty to you.
No.
It's a business.
Yeah.
So
And they are making money.
they're making money.
With our venue, they like, well, we had one date and then there was a huge tournament in town. And
Mm-hmm.
so we were like, that's not going to work. We hadn't like signed the contract
Uh-huh.
yet. We weren't going to be able to get hotel blocks. And so we were like, okay, we'll do this one.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like written an email, verbal,
Uh-huh.
and they were dragging their feet on the contract. I was about to lose my mind.
Lose it. Oh my gosh, I
And
bet.
they were like, it's fine. Like, you know, we've got you marked down. And I'm like, that doesn't mean anything to me. Like, I don't
Yeah.
know you. I don't trust
Yeah,
you.
exactly. Because it's crazy because you get someone that comes in, they're like, I'll pay this deposit for this date. And they're like, oh, okay. Like,
Yeah.
sounds good.
Yeah.
No, it's like it's almost like a rat race, honestly, to like get these like vendors locked in.
Yeah. Which is definitely like where the stress comes from.
Literally. And if you can do anything to alleviate that, do it.
And then the other thing that I heard recently from another bride that they've actually had a longer engagement, but they have a wedding date now.
Mhm.
And in terms of like getting organized, she is not doing a planner.
Mhm.
They have like a venue coordinator, so they'll get
Yeah.
access like the month before or whatever. And she has a younger sister who will like be in the wedding too.
Mhm.
But she is in like New York City, and she was like, I'll give you a couple $100 a month if you
Oh,
can help me.
side hustle.
Yeah, like get
Yeah.
organized and stay
Mhm.
on track with this. And
Mhm.
she was like,
Yeah.
if you're dining out food, like whatever.
Yeah.
And she's like a very type A person.
Uh-huh.
So, I mean, it's really nice that she's paying her. But like, if you do
Yeah.
have a type A friend that you want them
Mhm.
to like, you don't have a planner and you need help getting organized.
Yeah. There's so many people that are willing to do that on the
Yeah.
side. Yeah. I wouldn't even like one of my friends, she just got married in November. And when she got engaged, she was like, I don't think that we've like really budgeted for a planner. I just sent her all my stuff from my planner. I just forwarded her everything.
Yeah.
And then she asked me to be like a day of coordinator for her.
Yeah.
And I was like, sure. I mean, I already know everything to do. And she
Yeah.
had a venue coordinator who showed up 10 minutes before she walked down the aisle. So wild. So I like me with her godparents did like everything. And it went great.
Yeah.
And because I feel like once you plan a wedding, you can do it. Like you can help
Yeah.
anybody. Like it's so burned into your memory. I feel like all the things you did that it's like, oh, okay. But yeah, she ended up paying me and I was like, you did not have to pay me for that. Like that was
Yeah.
so like simple. But yeah, I mean, there are so many people that are willing to do it too, who enjoy doing stuff like that.
Yeah, they love it. It's like,
yeah.
I mean, and it is fun playing. Like
it is.
I mean,
I was like, do you need help? I like helped her with some of her like invitations and stuff like that. And it was kind of like fun to just like go back and like, because it's not your wedding. You know, you don't have that stress.
You don't have the stress and the pressure.
No. And it was just kind of like a fun little like hobby.
Yeah. Just like, you know, you're some things on track. And it's like, obviously everybody whoever you're helping is going to be so grateful. So
yeah. Literally. I feel like brides are
as well.
Unless you have a bridezilla, most brides are so incredibly grateful for like any sort of help they can get.
Yeah. And if you think
understandable,
it's going to be a bridezilla,
maybe don't help.
All right. Well, wrapping up. So, you know, everybody obviously always says enjoy the moment, which, as we kind of said, it's easier said than done, especially if like you do have a certain time frame you're trying to make happen. And regardless of like how quickly you jump into the planning process, again, especially if you got engaged around the holidays, you're probably going to get some external pressure because you're around friends and family a lot more.
Yeah.
And so you talked earlier, you started off and you were like, you know, boundaries.
Yeah.
So how would you suggest somebody handling like, you know, everybody in my family is asking for a date and the details? Like, what are some ways that you feel like you either did or could have kind of set that early on?
I just remember Gil and we talked and we're like, we have to be on the same page completely. It can't be like, oh, well, one person says this, and like you can't have your fiance almost throwing you under the bus for things. So like I think you have to be very much united front and address it together if you can. Just be like, you know, like, oh, it's like, well, Gil and I have discussed it, you know, when it comes to the date, it's going to depend on, we were between two venues. And I was like, as soon as we have more information, we will let you know.
Yeah.
And it's not rude to stop answering. Like, you have given your answer. People will pick and pick and pick and expect more. You can't come up with more information that you don't have. So, and it's not like something you can just make up and go with it. Like, you know, so give them the answer, be a united front, but like, don't be afraid to kind of put your phone on mute or just put them on mute, honestly, because, you know, you can't give them information you don't have. Yeah. And they'll be the first to know. But just don't let people get to you if you can. Easier said than done. But if you and your fiance are on the same page, then you should be fine.
Yeah. And that is crucial, is making sure you are on the same page and then just make it simple. Like, I feel like sometimes it's like people try to like get elaborate with like, oh, you know, these like crazy stories of why you have information. It's like, just be like, we'll share the updates when we have them. And, you know, right now we're working on a few things or right now we're just like enjoying, you know, being engaged.
Yeah.
And people, there's very rarely like just a last minute wedding that you've got to go to. Right. Everybody's going to get the information that they need.
No one's going to spring it on you. You will get the save the day. You will get the invitation. It'll be okay. Yes.
It'll all be okay.
Everyone take a deep breath.
Yeah. And that is how we're going to wrap up going into or starting 2025. Everyone take a deep breath.
Take a deep breath.
Awesome. Well, don't forget to subscribe, rate, review. And, you know, as we go into the new year, we're going to be breaking down all of, you know, the starting out phases. If you're just getting engaged and have lots of brides with spring weddings. So tune in and we'll see you next time.
Follow along.
Bye.
Bye.